Welcome again to Cycle Sports World, where this week we return to the UCI Cyclo Cross World Cup as the focus turns to round 3 of the Women's Elite Series in Belgium, and we'll look back on the Transalp, one of Europe's most popular standalone events. Welcome then to the Belgian coast, West Flanders, and the windy corner of that coastline that's Coxide, a regular venue on the World Cup calendar, famous for the fact that it provides something of a contrast to all the mud and grass. This is all about riding in sand. 3 kilometres then, starting on tarmac, a mixture of woods and dunes and plenty of hurdles to jump. We're here for the Women's Elite race, all the names in evidence. Helen Wyman there, the British national champion. Daphne van der Brand from the Netherlands, defending World Cup champion, now lying second. San Kant, the Belgian national champion. San van Parsen, another Dutch rider and the current World Cup leader. Pavla Havlikova, Czech rider, lying 6th at the moment. Catherine Compton, 32 years old, from the USA, current national champion there. And Crystal Ferrier-Bruno, 31-year-old from France. Sophie de Boer currently lying 9th in the World Cup. So all riders poised for the start, a dash down this tarmac straight. And what they'll all be looking for is an advantage as they go into that first corner. Elbow to elbow, this lead pack now. And it's a strong start by the World Cup leader Van Parsen with Kant on her right. But it's Sabrina Schweisser from Germany who comes through from the second row of the grid down the right-hand side of the course to get the inside line on that first turn and leads onto the grass. She's followed by Van Parsen and de Boer. Some clear space already for the German girl. And the steep run into the dunes comes early in the course. It's likely to shake things up when the bunch is still so close together. Some shouldering the bike, some push. You can probably see it's a lot easier on the compacted line over on the left-hand side. Heavy going on the soft sand to the right. And most riders opting to run down the other side of the bank too, rather than risk remounting in a crowd straight into a tricky loose drop. Van Parsen has taken the lead with Schweisser hanging on to her wheel. There's a small gap there to Wyman, de Boer and Nikki Harris of the UK. The leading pair sticking together down that short bank and across the edge of the woods. A fast but bumpy section. And that big pack chasing them down now. And Van Parsen opens up a gap over Schweisser. The German girl starting to fade. Harris moves up into 3rd. Bit of a sketchy moment there for the British girl around the corner. Catherine Compton in 4th, followed by German national champion Hannah Kupfernagel and Wyman. De Boer has dropped back into the pack just ahead of Van der Brand, Ferrier-Bruno and the British rider Gabriella Day. On now into a steep drop into a rutted corner, potentially hazardous for the riders. No problem for Van Parsen though, she's out on her own. The leading riders spreading out now. And you can see the wheels dropping into the ruts where the dirt meets the tarmac. There's care required here. And there's a problem for Van Parsen in the ruts. She puts her foot down, loses time, but there's enough of a gap to keep her safe. Schweitzer sails through. Compton now 3rd, has a bit of a slither, but keeps it together. Compton attacks Schweitzer, moving right over to the other side of the course to put the sticky ruts between them, making it impossible for Schweitzer to get on her wheel. And Compton closes right up to Van Parsen across the grass. Continuing to chase, looking for her opportunity. And these are the chasing riders, Kupfernagel, Van der Brand, locked together. Schweitzer is slipping back through the field now. And up front, it's Van Parsen still leading. She attacks the bank, but she has to dismount and stumbles in doing so. Compton grabs her chance and runs inside, getting ahead as both riders shoulder the bikes now. Onto a stretch of soft, draggy sand. It's quicker to run through this, but still immensely hard work. And these are the chasing riders. Van der Brand moves ahead of Kupfernagel. Meanwhile, at the front of the race, Compton takes the lead on a tricky sandy descent as Van Parsten struggles in the soft going. They hit another run up. Van Parsten really working hard, but struggling to stay now with the American. Van der Brand and Kupfernagel in the soft sand. Van der Brand remounts for the descent, letting her pull away from Kupfernagel, who's playing safe, keeps running. Van der Brand nearly makes it up the bank on the bike, has to hop off near the top. Again, Kupfernagel opts for the early run. And at the front, Compton and Van Parsten grind through a sticky section. Van Parsten forced to dismount. Compton drawing further ahead as a tiring Van Parsten misses getting her foot straight back into the pedal on the remount. And Compton working hard to maintain and indeed build that gap over Van Parsten. Here are the chasers. Kupfernagel stays on the bike. Van der Brand has to run, with Wyman putting a strong ride in behind. And on now to the end of lap 1. Compton has 8 seconds over Van Parsten. Behind them, Kupfernagel still ahead of Van der Brand, both 28 seconds down on Compton. Wyman hanging on to 5th at 39 seconds. Then the bulk of the field close to behind, strung out but still mostly together. And there's quite a healthy turnout to watch here in Belgium. The weather, of course, making a huge difference. Making a huge difference to these riders too. If it was wet, this sandy course would create absolute havoc, both for them and the bikes. Wet sand and bike transmissions do not mix, but the team mechanics hoping for a quiet day today thanks to this weather. Van Parsten riding alone now. Katie Compton absolutely nowhere in sight. There she is out on her own in the lead, but the American girl loses the front wheel in the turn. She's down, shakes her head in disgust, but is up and running quickly, leaps back on the bike, tries to re-establish a rhythm. Looks as though her chain may have slipped off in the crash, but she has to pedal it back on. And Van Parsten closing the gap slightly, sees Compton ahead, ups the effort. And Compton looking smooth. Van Parsten chasing hard now, she's seen the opportunity. And there's the replay. You can see she was caught out by the transition between the smooth tarmac and the rutted dirt. Goes down quite hard. And the American now in the pits. The rules allow a change of bikes, and she may have knocked something out of line in the crash. But can she get back out of the pits and keep that lead? Indeed she can, but Van Parsten has closed that gap down considerably. Up to the front of the race once again, and it's Compton still firmly driving the pace along despite the upset of that crash. The American girl looking entirely unfazed. And back in those punishing dunes, and Van Parsten is starting to slow. Van der Brand closing the gap down behind her. Van Parsten comes through, Van der Brand still chasing hard. Compton not letting up the pace, the American piling it on relentlessly. The main group shouldering their bikes through the soft sand. Sand cant at the head of the pack, and it's all too easy to see how tough it is to ride through this deep sand. And there's plenty of it here today. Van Parsten starting to look very, very tired now. Van der Brand closing fast. She closes right up to Van Parsten's wheel as she struggles through the ruts. And Compton now lapping the tail enders, including Kloppenberg of Denmark, and there's Vicky Thomas of Canada. And that must be a really disheartening sight for those two. As the American girl powers through the sand. Sophie de Beer still keeping it all together. And cutting forward now to the end of lap 4. Van Parsten and Van der Brand cross the line together. Van der Brand making a move, looking a lot fresher than Van Parsen, it's got to be said, but Van Parsen not giving up. And this sandy course is really starting to tell on these riders now. That's Sankant running now in 4th place, losing it in the sand. Van der Brand has a small gap over Van Parsen, but Van Parsen doesn't look like she's got any answers at the moment at all. There's Kant pushing hard to keep the pace ahead of the pack. Kupfernagel, De Boer and Havlikova chasing hard. And so it's the lone figure of Katie Compton of the USA who crosses the line to win here in Belgium. Round 3 victory to the US national champion. Daphne Van der Brand takes second, a massive 2 minutes and 21 seconds down, but that should keep her lead in the series intact. Sam Van Parsen holds on to third, another 20 seconds back, keeping her hopes alive. And finally, it's Sankant who takes 4th.
That course is so demanding, and I felt good today. My skills are on. I brought my A game this year, so I just kept trying to push the pace because after crashing so many times last year and losing so much time so quickly, I figured, you know, I don't care what the gap is. I want to make sure I have a cushion in case I crash again and not lose time. I mean, I want to definitely go as hard as I can, and I didn't want to give up any time anywhere. And then I know Katarina Nash is riding really well, and we went head-to-head a couple weeks ago, and I just know I had to keep the pace on, and even if I have a gap, just prepare for Worlds for this year and as well as next year.
Confirmation of those results then, with Compton proving she had the better of the tricky conditions here on the Belgian coast. To the podium here, Coxseed in Belgium and round 3 of the UCI Cyclo Cross World Cup. Compton takes the win, Van der Brand second and Van Parsen third. More still to come as next we head to the European Alps for action from the bike Transalp. That's after the break. Welcome back as now the bike Transalp gets underway in Rieth, Austria after bad weather meant the cancellation of the planned first stage starting in Littenwald in Germany. Normally in an 8-stage race, this year it will be contested over 7 stages, 528 kilometres and 18,800 metres of climbing, with over 500 teams of 2 competing. After the start, the peloton pedals up to the Rieterkogel and then down into the Zillertal. And thereafter via Lussetal to Weerburg, the first ever stage turn of the Transalp Premier run back in 1998. 11 years later, our food station provides the needed energy to tackle the next climb. Hans Gent and Andreas Kugler from the Multivan Merida team won from the Bix team in a time of 2 hours 11 minutes 30 seconds to take the first stage and the overall lead. In the women's competition, Melina Lantving and Kristen Nurgaard took the win, with mixed going to Alison Sider and Daniel Gatzelf. The second day starts with the weather looking as though it's going to be friendly once again. Not always the case on the Transalp, it has to be said. It can be wet and at altitude very, very cold indeed. Well, plenty of encouragement and they're going to need it. The peloton climbs up the Fitzesjach on the well-known mountain bike path along the Schleigspeicher. Although the route to Brixen is pretty long with its 94.8 kilometres and its 2,100 metres of altitude, after reaching the summit the course leads downhill for 60 kilometres, which of course will be a huge relief, but that downhill part is tricky due to the loose ground, demanding more and more technical skills from the riders. Way above the snow line now, this is where they get chilled and the speeds pick up on the downhill run. Although Hannes Gens crossed the line first, it was the team Full Dynamics who finished the stage as first complete pairing ahead of Gens's partner Andreas Kugler. The time for the winner was 3 hours 26 minutes. Thomas Dietsch and Tim Boehm from Team Bulls 2 rounded out the podium in third. Gens and Kugler maintaining the overall lead, as indeed does Team Rothhaus in the women's and Rocky Mountain in mixed. The fourth stage are the bike transalp from Brixton to St Christina, a new stage turn, 83 kilometres and 3,600 metres of altitude. Well, at first, the peloton follows the long ascent up to the Versjoch and then through the Wilstar to the Schleuterhut. There, the Kreuzljoch compensates all the stresses and pain so far with a fantastic scenery before everyone heads for the downhill to Camp Hill. The route then mainly leads on gravel roads to Cavora and climbs up the Grudnerjoch. And right before the finish is a fantastic trail awaiting the mountain bikers after Wolkenstein. Well, Hannes Gens and Andreas Kögler celebrated their second stage win. The Multivan Merida biking team members mastered the 83 kilometres and 3,600 metres of climbing in 4 hours and 8 minutes, thus extending their lead in the overall ranking. Platt and Stefan Sam from Team Red Bulls, who were also in front for a long time today, followed up as runners-up in 4:09. On now to a brand new stage connecting the two new Transalp towns of St Christina and Sarnthein through 82 kilometres and 3,300 metres of altitude. It also features the longest climb of the Transalp so far. In fact, the longest climb the Transalp has ever seen. The Via Rittner Horn, 1,679 metres of altitude, had to be conquered in one hit in order to make it up to the Gesteiger Sattel. Hard work, but worth it due to the long trail downhill by the Mulsteig into the finish. Switzerland's Lucas Buckley and Thomas Stoll not only won the fifth stage, they also took over the leadership from today's runners-up, Hannes Gens and Andreas Kögler from the Multivan Merida team. Team Bulls 2 came in third. Thomas Dietsch and Tim Böhm crossed the finish line after 3 hours 54. Only 1.9 seconds ahead of the squad members Carl Platt and Stefan Sam, who are to bury all hopes of a victory due to a flat tire. Moving on, the sixth stage, 77 kilometres into Calton. That was won by Thomas Dietsch of France and Tim Böhm from Team Bulls 2 in just over 4 hours. The bearers of the yellow jersey, Lucas Buckley and Thomas Stoll, and the runners-up in the elite category, Hannes Gens and Andreas Kögler from the Multivan Merida biking team, sprinted to second and third rank respectively. And celebrating their second stage win, Switzerland's Lucas Buckley and Thomas Stoll impressively underlined their ambition to bring home the crown. The bearers of the yellow jerseys mastered the 74 kilometres and 3,000 metres of elevation gain from Calton to Andalo in 3 hours 31 minutes. Well, after a long, hard week, it was only fair that everyone should enjoy an unusually short and comparatively easy run into the finish. Just 60 kilometres with 1,400 metres of climbing from Andalo to Riva on the shores of Lake Garda. So hand in hand, the two Swiss riders, Buckley and Stoll, taking the men's title after a solid 23 hours, 42 minutes of riding. Landeving and Norgard, the winning women's team, in a time of 29 hours 58, and the mixed title going to Team Rocky Mountain in the form of Daniel Getzoff and Alison Seidel.
Was a very good Transalp this year. You know, we rode very well together, had to ride strongly against some very strong competition, so it's very satisfying to come out of here with the orange jerseys. But yeah, overall, a great Transalp once again, a great route, and yeah, it's just really enjoyable to be here once again.
Yes, it was a very good feeling, but I didn't think it was so hard. I was surprised it was such a fight. Well, I was very nervous this morning. I felt good, but with the leader jersey and just a 3-minute advantage, the victory was not safe. For a team to win in the Transalp is a great thing, and of course I'm very happy. It's a big reward for the hard work that we've done this week. Well, finally, just by way of total contrast, pictures now from a brand new event with what's hopefully a very promising future indeed. Close to 500 cyclists took to the streets of Dubai for the Spinny's 92 Cycle Challenge recently. The race, the first and largest of its kind in the UAE, started and finished at the Dubai Autodrome and took in some of the city's top sights, such as the Burj Khalifa and, of course, the Burj Al Arab. After a long, hard day's cycling in punishing temperatures, it was Humaid Merab from the Al Ali Club first across the line, with Team Frankie's Lee Whiston second in the men's race. His teammate Victoria Norval, the first woman to reach the finish. Well, that's it for this week on Cycle Sports World. More action from the UCI Cyclo Cross World Cup in the form of the men's elite race round 2 coming up next time around.